Hey guys, this is Ranveer Singh from the Anza College, and my topic was environmental ethics. I hope you guys enjoy the presentation. To start off, what is environmental ethics? As a great quote by Mahatma Gandhi once said, Earth provides enough to satisfy every man's need, but not every man's greed. This is perfectly summarizing environmental ethics. The problem which we face now as global citizens is that there is a finite amount of resources, but an infinite amount of need by the people. Let's start with beginning what environmental ethics really is and the moral issues which surround it, including moral responsibility towards the environment. The actual definition and concept of environmental ethics is the discipline and philosophy that studies the moral relationship of human beings to, and also the value and moral status of, the environment and its non-human contents. In other words, all forms of life have the right to live, and denying that right to live is wrong, according to environmental ethics. Respecting the existence of not just other humans, but also the non-human entities and recognizing their right to live is our primary duty. With environmental ethics, morality extends to the non-human world. Alas, unfortunately, we have an endless list of ethical issues, like water and air pollution, the depletion of natural resources, loss of biodiversity, destruction of ecosystems, and global climate change. The worst part is, we all play part as humans into that debate. And within that discipline of environmental ethics, we find tough ethical decisions that humans must consider no matter what. Like I said earlier, we have finite resources. Our natural environment is not a storehouse to rob resources from. Using resources unduly is resulting in their depletion, risking the life of our future generations. Now the question is this ethical? Well, yes, but no. Just like I mentioned the Gandhi quote before, humans can be both the problem and the solution for the environmental crisis. Not only can they play a great role in solving environmental issues, but also play a key role in destroying them. Values can show a path to not only exploit the environment beyond the limits, but to save that very environment in the first place. While ethical issues concerning the environment have been debated for centuries, environmental ethics did not emerge as a philosophical discipline until the 1970s. Its emergence was the result of increased awareness of how rapidly growing world population was impacting the environment as a whole, as well as the environmental consequences that came with growing use of pesticides like DDT, technology, and industry. Environmental ethics not only help define a man's morals and ethical obligations towards the environment, but also the human values which become a factor when looking at those environmental ethics themselves. Human values are things that are important to individuals, that they can use to evaluate actions or events. In other words, humans assign values to certain things and then use assigned value to make decisions about whether something is right or wrong. This is exactly what we do in our everyday lives. Human values are unique to each individual because not everyone places the same importance on each element for life. I may like a basketball more than you like one. For example, a person living in poverty in an undeveloped country may find it morally acceptable to cut down the forest to make room for a farm where he can grow food for his family. However, a person in a developed country may find this action morally unacceptable because the destruction of forests themselves increases the carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere, which can negatively impact the environment. Building upon the notion of environmental pollution and what it can do to the environment, many human activities lead to environmental pollution. The rising human population is increasing the demand for the nature's resources as well. Not only that, but animal and plant habitats are also being destroyed in the process to make space for human habitation. The animals that thrive in them unfortunately lose their natural habitats and eventually their lives. What's worse is that the UN reports that around 1 million animal and plant species are now threatened with extinction, many within decades, more than ever before in human history. The average abundance of native species in most major land-based habitats has fallen by at least 20%, mostly since 1900. More than 40% of amphibian species, almost 33% of reef-forming corals, and more than a third of all marine mammals are threatened. Now, how can environmental ethics address this? Well, we can get the word out. Things like the internet, a more globalized economy, and widespread changes in climate draw our attention to events happening around the world. And with this new awareness comes some ethical questions regarding the responsibilities humans have with respect to the care of the planet. Now, this is where we connect moral responsibility. Another important point in relation to environmental ethics is about our moral responsibility to preserve nature for our future generations to come. In doing so, we need to strike a balance between our needs and the availability of resources, so that the forthcoming generations are also able to benefit from their use. We pretty much just don't want to run out. Human beings are also a part of the environment that also lives with other living beings. We need to be respectful of that. Thus, we have no right to exploit the non-human entities in nature like plants and animals when not needed. The term biocentrism encompasses all environmental ethics that extend the status of moral object from human beings to all living things in nature. Biocentric ethics, in turn, calls for a rethinking of the relationship between humans and nature. It has four main pillars. Humans and all other species are members of Earth's community. All species are part of a system of interdependence. All living organisms pursue their own good in their own ways. Human beings are not inherently superior to other living things. These four pillars are what give support to biocentrism and its theories, along with supporting environmental ethics as a whole. By essentially making plants and animals and all non-human species around you part of your own society, it makes you want to protect them more. It also makes you want to morally question yourself and also ethically before you conduct any task which requires you to interact with nature. Now that begs the question, is it morally right to continue with technological advances at the cost of the environment? This is a question which many scientists have continually asked over the decades, but we have no answer. It should be our moral responsibility to protect the environment and the other living entities among it, but yet we continue to do not do so. Why? Animals and plants too have a right to get a fair share of resources and lead a safe life as we do. At least that's the idea behind environmental ethics and biocentrism. Now, there's always been skepticism when it comes to climate change as a topic and global warming, but environmental ethics continues to push forward the notion that it is very real and it is a true threat, and we need to respect nature or nature is going to call right back at us. All in all, the emergence of environmental ethics was a result of increased awareness of how the rapidly growing world population was impacting the environment as a whole, as well as the environmental consequences that come with the growing use of things like pesticides, technology, and industry. The aim is to provide ethical justification and moral motivation to certain questions which are always hard to answer. Questions like, should we cut down the main forest for the sake of human consumption? Should we knowingly cause the extinction of other species? Should humans be forced to live a simpler lifestyle in order to protect and preserve the environment? These are all questions catered to our comfort, but not of other species and non-human ones at least. These are all the questions and the call to action which environmental ethics begs for people to fight for the nature and not for themselves, to not fight for their greed and need, but to fight for others' need. In the end, it all boils down to making a viable environment in which we have to comprehend the distinction between ecological balance and ecological imbalance. So far, environmental ethics is concerned with ecological consciousness, to safeguard against cruelty to all creatures in nature, to make friends with nature and to live happily with it instead of destroying it and using it to our advantage. If climate change and environmental ethics are not taken into account as a whole in the next few decades, it will be too late for our planet. And that's the sad truth. If you enjoyed the video, thank you. I really hope you learned something new about environmental ethics because I sure did. This is Ranveer Singh from Anza, signing out.